Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. This is Dave once again, and welcome to another video presentation where we'll be doing something different. This is the fourth video on my playlist that is not directly sale related, but nevertheless still very informational. And in this video presentation we will be disassembling, taking apart or doing a teardown of this Philips MP3 player that you see in front of you. Now this device is, to be very specific, it's a Philips GoGEAR MP3 player, family name or model RaGa. It has a capacity of 4 GB of internal memory. The precise model is SA1942/02. However, I have already added the necessary links in the description part of the video referring to this product of Philips's main website, so please do check it out. Now this particular model is one of two that does not come with the embedded radio option, but nevertheless this tutorial, disassemble guide, how to do it yourself, can also be used probably for older models, so 1 GB, 2 GB. I'm sure they're probably manufactured or made in the same manner. So my model is the one on the far right of the column that is highlighted, and the one in the X column, the only one that doesn't have the radio feature. Now this is the snapshot of the leaflet information. So now we will have a much closer look or overview on the actual multimedia device, and then we'll move on from there. So this is how the MP3 player looks like up close. So the front plastic mask has some minor surface scratches, but nothing serious, so it's pretty much nicely preserved. And also this side of the aluminum body or the enclosure of the multimedia device as well. Maybe here is a little evidence of plastic being a little more chipped away. This is a remnant from the first time that I opened or disassembled the MP3 player. Okay, so also here on this side, the aluminum body isn't dented in any way, deformed. So let's look at the back. Of course, you have the GoGEAR text, the stated capacity, and here you have the rest of the information. At the bottom, this is of course the model and the serial number. I basically added a piece of a transparent sticky paper on the side so this doesn't get with time blurred out, the text disappearing, so it's preserved. Now let's look at the bottom side of the player. So this is your hold switch, or well, it's not actually a button, but it's a slide switch. Then you also have the reset hole. Here, in order to reset your player, you would probably need some sort of a paper clip or needle to reset the device if it was behaving oddly, freezing up and similar. And this is naturally your mini USB female port. And here you would attach your USB cable in order to transfer the music on or off the device. And behind this plastic circular cap is hidden a small Phillips screw. I have basically already disassembled this MP3 player a couple of months ago. So when I was trying to lift this cap, I deformed it a little bit, but nevertheless. But this screw underneath here isn't actually the most vital one or the important one. There is another one hidden elsewhere, and that you will see in a couple of moments when we'll get to the actual disassembly part. So now let's just have a quick look at the top. Here you have the headphone jack or the opening, so 3.5mm Klinken stereo connector goes in here, and you have the microphone hole or the port. So here you definitely don't want to insert anything sharp because you will destroy your microphone and therefore disable the recording feature, at least hardware wise. Now this compartment over here, what would you put in here? So in that compartment you would place one of these things, neck strings or neck straps, so you could carry your MP3 player around your neck or even attach it to a keychain ring. So that is the functionality of this compartment here, or the hole. Well, if you have to have a much more closer look, you would see that here a little bit the aluminum body is slightly deformed, and also in this opening here the plastic looks like it was burned or chipped. Well, the thing is, the first time when I tried to disassemble the device, I just removed the Phillips screw that was underneath the plastic cap, and I thought that the enclosure, the plastic inner one, would just simply slide off the player, but that didn't happen. So I tried forcefully opening it, but that was a mistake, because then in the process I scraped off some of the plastic of the inner enclosure of the MP3 player. Just a quick history on the device. I bought it a couple of years ago for a really good price. I think it was 5, maybe 10 euros, but probably 5 euros, because it didn't came with headphones or the charging cable, the box, documentation, nothing, just the bare naked unit. So for testing sake, we're just going to turn it on to show you that it works. So you're greeted with the Philips screen, the GoGEAR logo, or the text. Let's see. Well, the battery is a little much more low. Let's see what else do I have on this device. Let's go to folder view, music. Also I have Alien, Femme Fatale, Hawk Nelson, Issa, Lifehouse, and other. So, okay, so let's just turn it off. You're just greeted with a buy text and some very primitive graphic. Okay, now much more on the actual disassembly part of the video. So first we're going to start with a little more on the procedure side, so information disclosure. As I mentioned previously, you have one not so elegantly hidden Phillips screw underneath this plastic cap. So be sure to remove the cap and unscrew the screw and remove it. Now you have a secondary Phillips screw, and this one is hidden behind this plastic front mask. So you need to remove this, and the screw, I think, is somewhere around here on this side of the mask or the enclosure. So how do you remove this mask? Now you have actually two approaches on how you can remove the front plastic piece of the mask on the MP3 player. The first one is that you preheat this surface here with something as harmful as your hair dryer. I wouldn't suggest using a heat gun, because even if you were to set it at the lowest possible temperature, the chances of you melting the plastic or even damaging the chemistry of the LCD screen is just far too great. Maybe if you had a much bigger distance between the heat gun and the actual device, you might pull it off, but the best way is just to simply use your ordinary hair dryer. Now, why is that? Well, this front plastic cover is glued onto the main aluminum body or enclosure of the MP3 player by one of those 3M double-sided sticky tapes. So you need to use the hair dryer to loosen up the adhesive that is bonding both sides together in order for you to easily remove the plastic cover. The first time that I disassembled this MP3 player, I actually went without using the hair dryer approach. I just simply used my, I think it was actually this pointy tweezer over here to get between the mask and the top side of the aluminum enclosure. I think this is actually a remnant of that approach. This is where I went underneath the mask, and then I went all around and pried it open. So as a secondary tool, you'll probably need some set of screwdrivers. Phillips head screwdriver will be more than enough. I have plenty of these in this bag. I'll probably use the ones over here. Maybe I'll find a suitable lifting or prying tool for the mask as well inside, but I actually doubt it. I would actually suggest that you use these X-Acto blades and of course the appropriate holder or the X-Acto knife as such for you to actually get in between the mask and the aluminum body of the MP3 player so you can lift the mask off, because it's very tightly secured, and this is slim enough to get in between both of the two sides. I'll put links in the description part of the video for both sets, so for the prying tool set and for a suitable replacement X-Acto knife set. Probably I won't be able to find the exact set that I have, but I'll certainly find a good substitute for you. So now we'll use the X-Acto blade, the triangular shaped one, to try to get this plastic cap of the MP3 player. Be very careful when you're dealing with these knives because they're very sharp, and if you're not careful, something might be severed. So I have removed the cover, and now you just unscrew this Phillips screw. So I'll use one of these screwdrivers that were in the plastic bag. Now this is when it gets more interesting. So let's say that you have preheated the surface with your hair dryer. So now you want to position your X-Acto knife, or you can also use a flat-headed screwdriver as long as it is sharp enough, it isn't dull in the end, to get in this compartment over here. There you go, we are underneath. Now you want to go with your X-Acto knife all around. Especially be careful in this compartment so that you don't scrape the glass side of the LCD screen. So be very careful in this area over here. Okay. I have actually decided I'm going to continue with this flat-headed screwdriver instead. So we want to be very careful. So you can see it over here. There is another screw underneath, so we will go all around. There we go. Of course, this mask is coming off much more easily because I have already taken it off a couple of times, at least once, definitely. Okay, so we go a bit more towards the middle. There we go. Maybe we can just lift it by hand. There we go. So that's why it's a good idea that you preheat this plastic front mask or this section of the MP3 player, so when you're trying to separate the mask from the aluminum body, that the adhesive or the sticky tape mostly remains on one side, so either the mask or the aluminum body. You don't want to have fractions all over, but nevertheless. And of course, when you're reassembling your MP3 player, also use some sort of a brush or dry cloth to clean this space over here and also on this side of the mask, so you won't have dust particulates on your screen. So now we will just unscrew this Phillips screw and then we'll continue. So the Phillips screw has been removed. There's nothing here. So now we will just, temporarily put back the mask in the same position. So in order to push out the rest of the inner side of the enclosure, the actual unit, we would just, I don't know, I'm using my Phillips screwdriver, so we just push it out like so, and everything just is then falls out of here. So this is it. So now we'll just remove the bottom cap of the enclosure, so this plastic piece, and we'll try to extract the button controls as well, so it lifts off nicely. So that's it. So now we'll have a much more closer look at the circuitry. Now when you're at this stage, it would be a good idea to clean, like with a brush. This one was in that bag of plentiful tools, to clean a little bit the bottom cap and also the buttons as well, because here you might have some dust, particulates and dirt, so you want to clean this very thoroughly. So that's it. Now this is much more up close, personal, zoomed in on the main circuitry of the MP3 player. So here on the PCB, on this surface, you have the data code or the version of the schematics of the MP3 player. Now let's have a little look at the screen. Perfect, shiny, no scratches, also no dust. So we didn't damage it when we slide it out of the aluminum main enclosure of the device. You can also see the turned light in my room. I had to turn it on because in these winter days we have very little effective light. Okay, so the final two obstacles on your course to completely disassembling this MP3 player, in essence taking out the circuitry from this, you could say, plastic caddy, or the main plastic body of the enclosure. You have to unscrew this Phillips screw and the one here. This one is a bit thicker, so, and you can also not be so careful when you're unscrewing this one, but nevertheless, while here you should exercise more caution, because this one is much closer to the LCD screen and, most importantly, the backlight that is underneath. So be careful with that one. It's less long and slimmer, but nevertheless. Okay. Now, before we move on to the other side of this plastic caddy, or the main plastic enclosure of the MP3 player, we're just going to stop a little bit at the bottom. So it's also a good idea that you clean the insides of your USB 2.0 mini female jack or port as well, because you don't want any accumulated dirt or dust causing a possible short while you're already at this stage anyways, or at least when you will extract the overall circuitry from the caddy. Another thing, so you see this protruding piece of plastic here. Now onto this was this back cover, or the bottom cover, screwed or secured onto it through that black Phillips screw and the adjacent plastic cap. So if you were to leave that on and you wouldn't remove the screw in the beginning of the assembly, and you were to only focus on the screw that is hidden underneath this front plastic mask, then you could probably also take out or slide out the main plastic body with the circuitry on it from the aluminum body of the MP3 player as well. But that would be probably problematic, because the button controls would then push or touch the screen of the LCD screen when the MP3 player would be slided out in this manner downwards. So maybe it is best that you unscrew or remove that Phillips screw as well when you're doing the disassembly. Maybe somebody will have here a much more better understanding or an idea. Now, you could say even more interesting part, or probably the main goal of your disassembly of this MP3 player, if you will decide to embark on this journey. The battery. Of course, this is a LiPo battery, 320 milliamp hours capacity, 3.7 volts. Now, what are these numbers over here? SL422436. What do they signify? So if I start at the back, 36, that means that the battery is 3.6 centimeters long. So 36 millimeters is the length. 24 signifies the width, so 2.4 centimeters or 24 millimeters. And the 42, that means thickness. How fat is the battery? So almost 5 millimeters. So that is the key to understanding what these numbers mean when you want to try to find a replacement one on eBay, for instance. However, well, even though this MP3 player or multimedia device from Philips is quite an older one, you might think that the batteries of such dimensions aren't produced or manufactured anymore. Well, you're actually wrong, because on eBay you can still get these. I'll put the link to the replacement or spare battery in the description part of the video, so no fear. But the one that I found is a bit more different than the one that was originally inside. So let's start again at the back. The replacement battery is not 36 millimeters long in length, it is 1 millimeter shorter. Now, in regards to width, it is 1 millimeter wider. In thickness, it is actually quite slimmer. It is only 4 millimeters thick. So the numbers would be 40, 25, 35. So even though the battery in the replacement one is a bit 1 millimeter wider, you can still make some modifications to the plastic caddy or the plastic enclosure where the circuitry resides. You can use an X-Acto knife and make more room for the new battery, so that shouldn't be a problem. So now we'll just unscrew the remaining 2 Phillips screws, and then we'll try to extract the circuitry with the battery out of the plastic caddy or the main plastic enclosure of the MP3 player. So the final 2 screws have been removed. Okay, so now this is much more challenging for you to extract the circuitry with the battery out of the plastic body. Alright, so let's try. I would just simply try to lift the circuitry a little bit, but immediately you can see you'll have problems because this piece of inside protruding plastic blocks you from taking out the circuitry, more importantly the battery that is underneath, so be careful. So let's see if I can try this without breaking anything. The problematic is also the headphone connector as well. So this might take some battle, but be patient and you'll get it out eventually. So you can basically try to separate the battery, because here you have a little bit of a sticky piece of foam. So you try to separate the battery from it, and that would probably make the entire extraction procedure much more easy. At least now you don't have to worry about this piece of plastic pressing on the battery. There you go. So that's it. Now this is the plastic caddy or the main plastic enclosure of the MP3, how it looks like. So here you have the compartment for the headphone jack. You also have here 2 protruding plastic pins, and also over here, and also here on this side right next to this hole where the Phillips screw goes. So this is all then aligned with the holes on the circuitry, so that sits even more firmly into the plastic caddy. But like I said, this protruding piece is most troublesome or problematic, especially when you're doing this for the first time. So you want to find a way to sort of separate the battery from that sticky foam, so then you can just leave the battery hanging down and then you can easily lift up the circuitry. Otherwise, this plastic will be pressing on the battery, and then you might sever the connections with the wires, and then you won't know which wire goes where, because the battery, I'll show you this in a couple of moments, has 3 wires, so not only plus and the minus, but an extra wire as well. And if you tear those connections, you will know where which wire goes where on the circuitry. So patience again. Now this is the other side, the back side of this circuitry for this Philips GoGEAR RaGa 4GB MP3 player. Again, here at the top of the circuitry you have the data code, or the schematics version of the PCB. This would be your microphone, and this is the main computer or microcontroller. Maybe I'll try to adjust the camera so you can see the information on it, otherwise I'll just copy it and add it into the description part of the video. And this would be your reset switch or button again, and this would be again probably the hold sliding switch. Now here the battery, as I've been telling you. So if you want to replace your battery in your MP3 player, you'll have to use your soldering iron 3 times, because the battery has 3 wires coming from her and not 2. So this is, the red one is plus polarity, and this one is soldered on this side of this monolithic. I think this is a ceramic capacitor. Man, that's quite a bulgy solder over there. And then the black wire goes in this compartment. I could have made the solder much better myself. And then here underneath, the blue wire goes over here into this tiny spot, so that you know the position, how this is supposed to be. And this is the backlight over here. When I'll flip the circuitry on the other side, we'll have a much more closer look. Now another thing, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video presentation, this particular model does not come with the radio option. And here we see an empty slot. So could this signify that in this compartment here on the circuitry, this is where you would put or solder onto your radio integrated circuit, or microcontroller for that? I don't know. Maybe somebody will notify me, enlighten me in the comment section. This is just a theory, because I haven't seen any other circuitries from the other RaGa Philips MP3 players or disassembly videos on YouTube, so I'm pretty much the only one that has done the disassembly guide in this detail in the entire world. So, though I do have to question whether if I was to acquire or come across the information, what sort of a chip or integrated circuit microcontroller goes in this part of the PCB, and then establish all the soldering connections on all 4 sides. Would I have the radio option enabled, or would it pop up on my LCD screen when I would turn on my MP3 player? Or would I have to even additionally make changes by reprogramming the microcontroller? Especially, if this circuitry is pretty much the same one as it is in those RaGa editions of this MP3 player from Philips, those that do have the radio option enabled. If it is the same circuitry, then this definitely applies that this is where you would put the radio chip in. When I had a much more closer look at this section of the circuitry, I was basically right in my presumptions that this is the backlight, because this then runs all the way underneath the LCD screen. So that was a correct presumption. Now, if we found the microcontroller, now where would the memory or the actual storage be located? Well, it's actually right underneath this screen. If I was to remove this white plastic case that holds the LCD screen in place, but of course I'm not going to do that. Underneath here you can already see some of these legs, and also on this side. Now this is actually the location of the MLC NAND flash chip, so the 4 GB storage. There is no other chip underneath or beneath this LCD screen adjacent to the memory chip, so it's only the microcontroller and the storage chip. No other ICs are present on the circuitry board. So that's it. We're done with the PCB commentary. Now, for the sake of operation, I'm going to turn on the MP3 player to see whether it still works. This will be very hard because these are very small buttons. Hey, what do you know? It still works. Oh, perfect. Alright, let's see if I can move around. So recordings, folder view, settings, let's see. Play mode, sound settings, language. Alright, let's see if I can go back. I think this is for the back. Yeah, so it still works. Alright, let's just power it down. Alright. Before I conclude the video presentation and add the final EndNote comments, you have to, in essence, overcome two major obstacles when you want to disassemble your Philips GoGEAR RaGa MP3 player, the 4 GB version, or depending on which one you will be disassembling. One is, of course, foremost, you have to find a way to lift this front piece of the mask or plastic of the main outer aluminum body enclosure of the player. That is one obstacle. The other battle that you'll have to face is, of course, after you have unscrewed the remaining two Phillips screws of the circuitry that holds the ladder in this, we could say, plastic cradle dock or inner plastic enclosure. You'll have to find a good measure of steady hands and patience to extract the circuitry from the enclosure, because you'll have to pay attention to this protruding piece of plastic that will be pressing on the battery when you will try to pull out the circuitry. And I don't know how you want to go about it, but I wouldn't want to break the battery in the process, because then those three wires will be separated from the board and you might not know where they were originally soldered onto their respective places. Ergo, it is then best that you follow my example on how I extracted the circuitry and the battery both intact from the cradle by first somehow gently separating the battery that is glued on one side by that sticky piece of foam, on the other side, the back side of the circuitry, because then this really makes the extraction much more easier. You don't have to pay attention to that you might sever the three wires from the battery that are soldered onto the board by this very annoying piece of plastic. Then you just have to, focus on the extraction of the circuitry at a right angle. You don't have to worry about severing the wires from the battery. In addition, if the intention of your disassembly or teardown endeavor that you will embark on your MP3 player, now regardless of capacity, and if that goal will be to change or replace the battery that is inside, which is has a diminished capacity or is just simply dying out or has died, a little trick or advice: when you will acquire your replacement battery and you'll be already set to solder the wires onto their respective places on the PCB board, think twice when you will be shortening the wires. I suggest that you leave them long enough that you'll have much more breathing space when you'll be trying to put the circuitry with the battery inside this cradle dock or the plastic enclosure. I would suggest that you leave the wires at least centimeter, perhaps even 2 centimeters long, because the ones here on my original battery, they're just really too short. Everything is really secured on tight, but also take into consideration that the battery is lifted a little bit from the circuitry or the PCB, so you could twist them around if they're long enough so they could be placed underneath the battery itself. So that will give you a much more breathing area when you'll be, like I said, reinserting the circuitry with the battery and everything. Finally, in conclusion, I have come to the end of this video presentation on disassembling the Philips GoGEAR RaGa 4GB MP3 player. I have really nothing else to say. I have been probably already long enough with the entire video presentation, the disassembly guide, and the intermediate comments, advices in between. If you found the video to be enough detailed, described, well guided, reward me with a like button. You can also comment me in the comment section if you want, but of course, naturally, if you found something to be misleading, improper, if I made an error somewhere, let me know again in the comment section below. If you have also any additional questions, I will get back to you as soon as possible, reply to you to the best of my abilities. Other than that, share, subscribe, and we'll see you probably in another teardown video of another Philips MP3 or actually MP4 player. So this is David. Have a great day. Bye.